you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another episode of All About Mechanics. And today is going to be Volenfell. We're going to go in with the same setup as before. One tank, one healer, one stamina DPS and one magic DPS. I'm going to go through all the bosses, all of their mechanics, what you should and shouldn't be doing, and of course we're going to show you the hard mode as well. So hopefully this will help for those that aren't too sure of what to do in the Volenfell dungeon, and hopefully this will help you get some of your achievements done and make this a little less stressful, especially when you're in pugs. Enjoy. Now, when you first enter this dungeon, you're going to be greeted with the usual suspects. There's going to be lots of range DPS, there's going to be lots of healers, and you have to make sure you interrupt them, and above all, make sure your tank is pulling everything into the center so you can get rid of things as soon as possible with your area of effect damage that your group should be carrying. Now, of course, the melees are obviously quite easy to handle for the tank, but the range can run away a few times, so you have to make sure that once you pull them in, keep them on the spot. When you come up here, same applies. Everything's pretty much melee as far as the lions are concerned, but make sure you've clawed them in place or pinned them to some extent, and make sure you keep the majority of the damage off the group. They do a couple of swipes and heavies and stuff, but they shouldn't be too problematic, especially if you've got good area of effect damage. Now this pull, again, keep an eye on the range targets, especially if you're a DPS or a healer. It's kind of something that you should pay attention to as far as interrupts are concerned. I know the tank can interrupt close range, but if you've got long range interrupts or you can run over and bash stuff, then go and do it. Don't just leave it to one person. You should always kind of work together as a team, and don't run around the room. It will cause a problem. Now this first boss, who I like to call Simba, has a fear mechanic. He will fear you. You do need to break it, so watch your stamina. Don't go sprinting around the room, dodge rolling too much, because otherwise you're going to keep running and running and running. It's going to be a problem. So get the tank to hold it in the very center along with the ants, and get those down with AoE if you can. Break the fear, get back in again. Now he will move backwards and forwards every time he fears you to kind of get a vantage point, if you like. He always finds himself a new place. So spread out a little bit, find your own space, and just burn him down as much as you possibly can while the tank holds it still. He's not too problematic, but again, what you do have to pay attention to is the fear. He does have a heavy attack mechanic as well, which the tank needs to be aware of. But if you are a DPS and he's after you, just block it, you'll be just fine. His damage is not that high. Now, there's a lot of enemies in this next section that you don't actually have to kill. You can just go past them. But I always encourage people to kill all of the enemies anyway, just in case you're looting certain items, because they can drop them as well. Like weapons and jewelry can drop from trash. And of course, if you're going for speed runs and stuff like that, some dungeons specifically require you to kill everything. So I'd like to make it a habit if possible, unless of course we're speed running it just for the monster helmet at the end, in which case just go for it. But generally here the same applies. There's lots and lots of enemies, lots of range stuff. Keep interrupts on those healers, keep interrupts on any mages or archers that are firing off any long range channeled effects. So if you see the red flashing sparks come out from the middle of their body, that's your cue to interrupt them. Don't sprint around the room, because if you do, it's going to be a real problem for the tank and he won't be able to hold on to everything. So the tank will be chaining stuff in, but there's so many enemies that it's going to be difficult to keep on top of the resources. So give him a chance, or her. Don't go running around mental. Just bring the enemy to the tank if they're chasing you. Block if you have to, interrupt if you have to. Pay attention to where you're standing as well. Very, very important. Now, if you don't kill those enemies, you can just run straight up these stairs and just attack these instantly instead of that room that we just saw. Pull these all together. Make sure you pay attention to interrupts, especially that guy on the left right there who just threw that nasty fire AoE across the ground. If you stand in that, it's gonna hurt, so be careful. Again, can't stress enough, don't run around the room. Anything that chases you, if you run away from it, it's just going to kill you in the back of the head. Also, it makes it difficult for the tank to keep up. The tank needs to be able to control stuff, and if you're running around like a headless chicken, it's not going to work. You'll notice that the majority of the group, in fact all of us, are not running around or moving that much. We find our own place, we stand in it, and if we have to move because of area of effect damage or an interrupt, then that's the only time we really move around that much. Same pull here, lots of humanoid stuff, lots of AoE, so be careful, don't go up in the tank's face, give yourself some distance, stay out of the nasty stuff, interrupt the range stuff, and again, as much area of effect damage as possible while the tank controls the room. This pull up here is the next boss. There's a few ads to start with, but pay attention to the boss. He's got some nasty, nasty attacks, especially that fire along the floor. You do want to stay out of that. So, get the tank to pin everything in the center as much as possible. Same as before, interrupt the healers, interrupt anyone that's channeling, and block those heavy attacks from the boss if you are getting hit by them. Now you can see the tank has got it nicely positioned in the middle. We're in a triangle formation, the other three members, I might add. So, no one's standing on anybody's feet. Get out of the spin, very, very simple. Just spin his axe. It doesn't do too much damage. You can kind of nip in and nip out if you're doing damage. But if you are quite weak on resist, just stay out of it until he's finished, then get back in afterwards. Again, you'll notice the whole triangle formation with the 3 of us at the back there, the healer and the 2 DPS. We all have our own space, so if any of us get attacked by the boss, we know which one is being hit. Now, partway through the fight, he will change. He'll drop his sword and board, and he'll bring out a flame staff. Now, this hurts. He will randomly throw a nasty fire AoE on the ground aimed at one of the members of the team. As you just saw, that was aimed at me. The trick to that is to get out of it. Very, very simple. Tank might need to reposition the boss occasionally, but again, it's essential that you keep him still. When he puts the AoE down, just move out of it. It's very, very simple. I know people are screaming vampire, fire, oh my god, but it's very simple to avoid fire. Step out of it. That's a very obvious AoE. Stay away from it. Don't run around the room, just move back a bit. Then, when he goes very, very low health, he disappears and the gargoyle pops out. Here he comes. Now, this is a very, very simple boss. Hold him very, very still. He will do 2 breaths, which will turn the tank to stone, or whoever gets caught in the AoE. You'll see the big cone effect there. There it is. You can break free from that, or you can just avoid it. He does a lot of flurry attacks, which can be blocked. They don't do too much damage, but of course, if you're DPS, you want to make sure they don't affect you. In the meantime, of course, after the second breath, usually he does a slam on the ground. So if you just stay out of it when he's pounding the ground, and then get back in when he's finished. Again, note that we're in a triangle formation, the 2 DPS and the healer, and we are not running around the room. We're staying relatively still, applying our damage, staying out of the area of effects, and then getting back in whenever they're gone. Now again, that ground pound comes after the first breath to start with, but the rest of the fight, it's every second. So that was possibly a little confusing, but the first breath, he'll slam, then the rest of the fight, it's every 2. Just like the ones in Hellra. Next pull isn't too bad. There's a few enemies, a few range stuff. Get the tank again to position everything in the center. Your DPS should be on point with interrupts, especially on those flame casters around the room. So your tank to pull them in as fast as possible. As you can see here, Stig is pulling in as many of those ranged adds as he can so that the group doesn't get overwhelmed with them. If you see them primarying a DPS to start with, by the way, say for example you're a DPS and they all fire at you at the same time, you must dodge roll, otherwise you're going to take a one shot. But to avoid that, make sure the tank goes first. Secret tunnel, titled with the word secret tunnel. Brilliant. In here, you start changing enemies. There's a few Dwemer construct types coming soon, and of course you've got dwarven spiders and spheres and stuff in here. Now, watch that AoE that just went straight through me. That is really, really nasty. If it slightly catches you, you can kind of dodge roll to mitigate the rest of it, but honestly, you want to avoid it. So step out of it or block it. The spheres do a nasty heavy attack. If you catch them doing that in your direction, make sure you block. And also, they do a channeled ability, which is what you just saw there, and you can interrupt it if you're quick. Essentially, the tank should pull everything in as close as possible and hold on to them, but you do have to make sure that you bash anything that is trying to do anything stupid. Again, lots of spiders here. Tank should pull them all in together. Watch that sphere at the back there. There he's channeling an attack, but the tank chained him in, so we're safe. Don't get right in their face. If you're a DPS, you have to be very, very careful. Got some nasty attacks. Again, another spawn of spiders and a sphere as well. Keep on the interrupts if they do anything stupid. Big channeled ability across the ground then. Again, make sure you stay out of it. It's very, very fast, so be really careful. If you've got low resists, you can take a one-shot to that occasionally, so be really, really careful. This boss can be an absolute nightmare if you don't pay attention. This isn't the usual big spreading AoE that pops at the end. This one actually does damage while it is growing. So the tank should position the boss in the center of the room if possible, while grabbing the adds as well. The adds will generally die to area of effect damage, but again, make sure you've got a couple taunts on them so they don't go loose. Do not run around the room. Get a nice little formation so you can see what's going on. And when this big area of effect spread comes from underneath the boss, you must get out. Every second that that's spreading, that does damage, and it's really nasty. You can see the fire pulsing from his center. He doesn't have a lot of health, but he does hit really, really hard, so mind your feet. He does move back a little bit occasionally. He darts around, but the tank should be able to pull him back into the middle again. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. Again, pay full attention to his pulsing ability. You've got to get out of it. His teleport ability is not too bad. It does a little hit on whichever target he decides, usually the tank, but it can hit other people as well. Just get out, get back in, get out, get back in, repeat. All about positioning that one. Of course, you have to press this button to open the other doors, because there's a couple of levers that you have to pull in this dungeon to let things happen. One is to turn steam off, one is to open doors. You'll see that as you go along. That one was to open the next door. Run back out here, and then you cut across to the door that was locked, so you can continue. Now, in the next corridor, where the steam is, this is where it gets tricky, because the steam can borderline one-shot you. If you stand in it, it will kill you. If you slightly clip it, you won't be too bad. But I'm going to show you how to get through it without dying. Now, of course, we've got to run down the hill a bit. There's some more Dwemer stuff here. There's some Assassin's Beetles up on the right. If you want to kill them, you're more than welcome to, but they're not necessarily essential for any achievements, although I'd encourage you to kill them if you're looking for loot. The tank should pull everything together here. Hold on to that Centurion because he really hurts. He's got a nasty spin, and if he does start doing his heavy attack, make sure as a DPS or a healer you are staying away from it. Also, make sure that Dwemer spiders are killed quite quickly, because if you don't kill them, they can charge up the other enemies and make them stronger. You don't want that to happen. They can give out nasty lightning attacks. Here, plenty of lions. Not too problematic. Tank should be able to pin them all on the spot while you burn them down with area of effect damage, but make sure that your tank is on point, taunting at least a few of them to make sure that the DPS don't get overwhelmed. Again, don't run away. If they're chasing you, bring them to the tank. It's a lot easier for the tank to manage the room if they're not running all over the place. Now, release the steam valve here. The boss is at the end of the corridor, and there are some adds in here. Now, you can range pull these in and get their attention and kill them right here, but what you want to do is time the steam. You can see that it's coming out of the ground and the side pipes there. So what we generally do is get as many damage shields as we possibly can with the group, and even a magma shell occasionally if we've got a Dragon Knight, and just time it and run when they're down. Get to the very end of the room and then kill the boss from there on. Now, if you time it wrong, or you pussyfoot about a bit and just hang back too long, you are going to get caught in it and you will die. It's very strong. Now, the tank again should position the boss in the center of the room, grab whatever additional adds have come from the corridor, and you can kill those with area of effect. The boss doesn't have a lot of health, but he's got some nasty mechanics. First of all, avoid his spin. Secondly, that area of effect that went across the room is just like the rest of the spheres. Be careful of that. And if you get a big area of effect on you, move back a little bit and stay away from the group. It's on you personally, and if you run, it will hit anybody else who gets caught in it. So if you've got a big AoE on you, just move back a little bit, hold block, and you'll be absolutely fine. When you start careering into the group, that's when you're going to kill him. Again, not too stressful, that boss, but it can go horribly wrong if you start running around in circles. 2 buttons in the room to hit there, 1 down the hill and 1 to the left. All the steam's gone now, you're safe. Now, Tremorscale is the next boss. I believe the first time these were introduced, apart from the dungeon itself, was in Craglawn. Now, they go under the ground, these types of enemies. So, when they go in the ground, you've got to just get out of the way so you don't get caught by the area of effect. But apart from that, he's not too challenging. He's very much kind of like a crocodile. So, this Dune Ripper just here, this is the type of enemy you're now going to fight. You see him go into the ground, and then he'll pop back up again with a burst AoE damage. It's not too problematic. Now, you can see this is a very simple boss, enemy type. He hits the tank if he's taunted, and he does a little tail whip occasionally. Tremorscale's no different. He's just a lot bigger. So we cut across this water here, you'll see him pop out of the ground. There he is. Happy days. Now, get the tank to hold him still as possible, I might add, and keep a taunt on him at all times. The DPS should position themselves around him, again, in a kind of a triangle formation, so you've all got your own space, so you can tell who he's hitting if he does any random attacks, which he does occasionally. He has a heavy attack, which can be blocked, which is a big tail whip there. You can see Stig just blocked it. Then he'll go into the ground occasionally. When he goes into the ground, he's going to pop up with a massive AoE. It's not too problematic as far as damage is concerned, but it will knock you back. It's just annoying. So when he does that, just go backwards, get out of the AoE. You can see it now coming. Get out of it, and then get back in again. Very simple. You start running around the room, it's going to be a problem. But you just get out, get in. Stay away from his face because you don't want to be knocked down by that whip. Very simple boss. Now that he's dead, you'll be going into the next kind of tunnel. There are some Dwemer targets in here. Again, there's some spheres that fire heavy attacks and channeled abilities across the ground. There's also a few spiders that you have to get rid of. Again, get your tank to kind of control them, put them all in the middle, and get them down with AoE as much as possible. But pay attention to those interrupts. They're very important. You don't want the spiders to charge up, and you don't want the spheres to fire out heavy attacks or channeled AoEs across the ground. Now, the next boss can be very challenging to those that are headless chickens. What I mean by that is people that run around the room completely mindless and not really paying much attention apart from get it off me, screaming. That's not going to help. Now, one of the targets will follow whoever it wants. With that in mind, this is where you need to learn how to kite. If you're not sure what that term means, it means basically moving around in a nice circle, keeping him off you or off other people. Now, the blue one will stay fairly central, you can damage him, they do share the same health bar, but be careful because he fires lightning into the air, which will be placed on the ground wherever people stand, depending on who he's aggroing. The yellow must be taunted by the tank all the time, you can either pull him to one side or stack him by the blue one, depending on how strong your tank is. But if you get caught by the yellow one's heavy attack and you're not blocking as a tank, you will die. If you get caught by his heavy attack as a DPS, you will die no matter what. So do not stand in front of his face as a DPS. It's very, very important. It's a conal effect as well, so it's really nasty. So keep them close together if you can. If you're not comfortable with it, just move the yellow one to the back of the room. Now, while keeping damage on the blue boss, it's important to pay attention to the red boss. The red boss can be taunted as far as a debuff is concerned, but you can't make him chase you. He will choose whoever he wants to chase, and in doing so, he will spin violently. If you get caught by that, you are dead. So be very, very careful. The trick to this is you can see I'm getting chased by the blue lightning one. He's throwing AoEs down on the ground, and I'm just going around in a circle, making sure that I don't get killed while doing damage. The red one, whoever it's chasing, if it's you, for example, make sure you have a nice circle around the group, keep him off people, don't go charging through them, and just let him chase you while spinning. He's not very fast. He shouldn't catch you if you're running normal speed. You don't even really need to sprint. You can see I'm just coasting it here. I'm not really trying. Just keep him off the group. Then when he changes targets, it's the other person's time to keep it off the group. While this is happening, everybody else should keep damage on the bosses in the middle and just relax. Don't go sprinting off to Spain. It's not going to help. You go too far, you have to run all the way back. You're not applying damage. It becomes a nightmare. So to recap, stay out of the yellow one's face. He has a heavy attack that will kill you. Stay out of the nasty lightning that the blue one puts on the ground. You can actually just go around in a circle and avoid it. And if the red one's on you, take him to one side until he's finished doing his business and bring him back in again. Very, very simple. They share the same health bar, so as soon as one dies, it's going to be a domino effect. And there we go. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to tackle that dungeon, especially the last boss, because it can be quite challenging. Just make sure that your group coordinates and you'll be just fine. So, first of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. If you're not subscribing, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support the channel outside of YouTube, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website xynodegaming.com. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.